Well, you're all very, very welcome to another episode or edition of the Mind Over Mountains podcast with Máirtín McDonagh. And we've got a great panel again in front of us today. We've got JP Hilliard, who's the director at WKN Real Estate Advisors. We have Damian Hall of Complete Transformation Retreats. We've got Deirdre Devitt. She's with the Novaerus group, Novaerus distributed by McGreal's group. And we've got Daniel McLoughlin, who's the owner of RockSalt Café and Restaurant. So we'll be chatting to you all in a few minutes, and I'm really looking forward to hearing how the year has been for you guys and what tips and insights you can pass on from your experience. But as always, I talk to Máirtín, and Máirtín, the podcast series, we've been doing it for quite a few weeks now, quite a few episodes, and I know we're getting a lot of inquiries from business owners and the like of that want to hear what they can do with Mind Over Mountains in terms of how can they maybe do a program with you to re-energize, to re-motivate themselves, to get themselves back on a good program, maybe to reset goals or anything like that. So it occurred to me, Máirtín, because I'm after maybe a week or two of holidays here, taking a break and creating a bit of space is always good to reassess goals and to reassess where you are in life and all of that. How important do you think taking time out is for business owners?
I think it's very important actually, because you need time. Like I'm sure when you're talking to Damian, he'll have he'll offer his words of wisdom about that. But it is very important that someone who ran two very big businesses for over 30 years myself, I know how important it is that you take a bit of time out. And I do encourage that with business leaders and that they do take a bit of time out for themselves and family and that. And that's what we're trying to encourage really in the programs we've designed in that people actually try and improve their balance. And actually, I'd be interested in hearing from the guys now. I've noticed a kind of a pattern going on in the last couple of weeks where we'd say work has opened up more for people now and people have got busier. And they seem to be doing less of looking after themselves and spending an awful lot more time around work and what's associated with that. So I'd be interested to see what the guys have to say about that.
Yeah, and before I do jump in to what the guys have to say about that, I wanted to just probe one little thing with you today, Máirtín, which is when you do make these reassessments, let's say Máirtín talks a lot, guys, about the wheel of life and all the different aspects of your life in terms of making sure that you're not just working all the time, that you know your family, your health, your finances, your business, your spirituality, all the rest of it is looked after, and that you look at it, what you call, Máirtín, the helicopter look. So one thing I wanted to probe with you, if you are a business owner that comes to the realization, or indeed if you're not a business owner, a human being that comes to the realization that one of these pizza slices out of the wheel of your life, if you like, is seriously out of kilter, there can be a certain fear, can't they, Máirtín, in making changes? And how do you combat that fear?
Well, predominantly what I do is I'm a life coach, and by listening to people and hearing about changes and transformations that they want to be involved in and want to make themselves, you can identify the areas that need attention mostly. And most people, when they do see that maybe they're overdoing it in some section of their life or that wheel of life, if they want to make changes and want to make them work, they will address those things and cut back maybe where they're spending too much of their energy.
Okay. So listen, I'm very interested here because we've got successful business people with us. So I'm going to probe each of them on their wheel of life really and see what are the areas they would like to see improve more on, because it's in a way it's through our vulnerability that we show strength on these things. But before I do, I want to hear about the successes that they have with their business. I'll start with you, JP Hilliard. Tell us about your business and tell us about how the year has been for you, or a year and a half even or so, professionally and personally.
Okay, thanks, Breandán. Well, look, WKN it's a professional services company working in the development and construction sphere. Interestingly, myself and my co-director John McNally carried out a management buyout of the business exactly 2 years ago, almost to the day now. So we are a business that operates nationwide. Our service lines would include project management, development management, property valuation, and fund monitoring. Our client base would be across investors, property funds, traditional developers, and some of the banks and alternative lenders. So we've quite a wide reach in terms of our client base. We're a relatively small SME. We're 10 to 12 people strong in terms of full-time employees. We have 3 to 4 consultants who also work for us on an ad hoc basis. And I suppose, look, the last 2 years or 18 months have been, they've been quite challenging for the business, but they've also been very productive. When myself and my colleague took over the business just over 2 years ago, it wasn't in great shape from a cash flow perspective. We did have a strong client base, but we didn't have a huge amount of cash on the books, let's call it. So we had some work to do with debtors and trying to build a business. We had a reasonably successful first year from May 2019 to May 2020. At that point in time, little did we know that COVID was on the horizon. However, the business plan, as it was 2 years ago, is still the business plan now. We are trying to grow a scalable and resilient business. And what I mean by that is we have retained all our staff through COVID, and nobody has been let go. And in fact, we have started a recruitment drive in the last 6 months for relatively senior roles within the business. And this will probably tie in with maybe a conversation later on in terms of, the work-life balance. I would say the work-life balance for ourselves has been quite difficult. We took over a business 2 years ago. We have to put in long hours to maintain the business and to grow it. However, we are trying to develop a succession plan behind myself and John, and that's probably the only way I would see, specifically myself and my co-director, getting a better work-life balance if we have good right-hand and left-hand people to bring on the business behind ourselves. Because currently, we win business, we carry out business ourselves. So we have to be a jack of all trades. That's fine to a point, but we won't be able to maintain that sort of level of commitment forever. But for now, the business is doing well. We've booked a trend. We increased our net profit last year by over 100% on the previous year, even during COVID, which was an excellent performance. And now we need to keep that momentum going. So that's it in terms of WKN for now. Give you a flavour of what we're about. So
very good, very good. Now listen, that's excellent, and I'll be interested to hear from you later on, JP. Just, it seems to me you've got a very busy business over the last 2 years or so. So how does that put the other pizza slices of your wheel of life out of kilter? I'd love to hear exercise, health, all that. Where are your ambitions for those for the next couple of years, we'll say.
Yep.
Let me go to Deirdre now. Deirdre, Devitt, you're the Chief Executive Officer with Novaerus, distributed by McGreal's Group. So tell us about yourself in the last year and a half or so.
Okay. Firstly, thanks for the opportunity. I guess very early in the pandemic, as a pharmacy group, our first concern was around our staff, who we thought would be, when we knew would be very much front of line, with pharmacies, being open all of the time. So we've 11 pharmacies in the group. So we kind of went with the traditional measures, of those early measures as regards prayers technology, and it was Irish designed and manufactured. And the head of our group, Cillian McGreal, obviously the pharmacist and the scientist in him, really, very early on thought that this had to be airborne. So he went and invested in the devices for our staff predominantly, but then liked it so much he contacted Novaerus.
Deirdre, we're losing you a little bit there, Deirdre.
Distribution for Ireland, and at that point, okay.
Now, maybe did it come a bit better there? We were losing
you hear
a bit. Yeah, we can hear you there again a bit. It's just something maybe on your internet.
Yeah, sorry about that. Can you hear me now?
Can hear you perfectly there now. Yeah.
Sorry about that. It's normally good.
No, you were telling us how it was spotted that was airborne. So
yeah,
pick it up from there. Yeah.
So Fannin Healthcare had the distribution for the HSC in hospitals, but nobody in Ireland had the distribution for this Irish device. So we have secured distribution for the next number of years. So from there, we went about marketing a brand new product. And let's be honest, not many of us had been shopping for disinfection devices prior to April 2020, is it?
Yeah.
And we took a non-medical approach, obviously. This was a medical grade device and had been, on the market for a number of years. It didn't just jump on a coronavirus bandwagon. They already had the product and had tested it successfully at that point against a coronavirus surrogate. So we took the consumer-prosumer approach, and we took Cullen Communications on board as our PR, and from a very small base, I suppose, we had the support of the McGreal Group in that, we had all the central functions that were already there supporting all of the pharmacies, which was fantastic from an accounts perspective and a marketing perspective, operations, logistics, all of that.
Mm-hmm.
So it really went from there, I suppose, and we saw in the first 8 to 10 months just this huge rapid growth.
Yes.
In those early days. You had those early adopters who saw the technology, liked it. And back then, let's be honest, nobody was meeting face to face.
Mm-hmm.
So pretty much everything was on the phone and online, and we were closing deals, every day, all day long. And we did a lot on News Talk. We really trialed everything, and we really wanted to be seen as a disruptor, I suppose, with this great Irish success story that we believed could not only get businesses back open, but keep them open. And since then, we've become Novaerus's 6th or 7th largest distributor. They're in 65 countries around the world, and we've presented to all the distributors on our model and our approach. So I guess, we've navigated the booms and slumps of the various lockdowns and phases since then, and the uncertainty around that for business. But we're very happy with how it's going, and it's a fantastic technology. And yeah, that's where we're at the moment.
Great. So again, a very busy time for yourselves, because no, more than JP in a way. You're talking about a huge new departure through COVID. So yeah, I'll be asking you the same questions, Deirdre, and interested to hear those as well. Let me go to Daniel now. Daniel McLoughlin, owner of RockSalt Café and Restaurants, and thank God, Daniel, cafes and restaurants are opening up a little bit more now than they were, but how did it put a pressure on you over the last year and a half or so?
Yeah, geez, it was a huge pressure, especially at the very early days, when it was unforeseen that you'd ever have to close, especially a forced closure like that. But I suppose the only good thing for myself was that everybody was in the same boat. It wasn't that there was a certain area or there was a certain industry, and it was out of my control, which is obviously always a good thing as an entrepreneur. If there's something you can't control, it doesn't weigh on your mind as much, But it was certainly concerning at the start, because you didn't know how the team were going to get paid. You didn't know how long it was going to last. There was a lot of uncertainties, and I suppose the whole year and a half has been like that. But thankfully, we came out the other end very strong, and we did a lot of things. I think the 16th of March initially we closed. I remember closed up the restaurants and sent everybody home, and woke up the next morning and I said, well, look, I'm gonna make the most of this regardless. And when else will we ever be able to say that we navigated the business through a global pandemic, never mind a recession or anything else. So if anything, I woke up with a spring in my step and a challenge ahead, and I was, I suppose, quietly excited about the challenge ahead. It was the new, and it was something that we all had to face, and it was definitely a big challenge to overcome as a business owner.
Sure.
So we set about doing a lot of different things. We we flipped straight away to takeaway options. We started going around the local community, giving out food and stuff like that. At the very first weekend we closed, because we had all the stock there. So we got the boys into the kitchen and we started cooking and we started distributing food out. So we started off quite strong. I think we only ever actually closed for probably about 2 weeks, give or take. We put a coffee hatchet window in Blackrock. We have two cafes, 2 restaurants. One in Blackrock in County Louth, lovely seaside village. And then we have another one in the town centre in Dundalk. And they were 2 completely differently challenged businesses. Blackrock really survived and actually thrived through the year with the local community there. And there was actually a lot of people who would have been commuting up and down to Dublin basically every day, and maybe they would have only stopped in with us on a Saturday or Sunday, that we're now working from home and we're getting a coffee with us every day of the week and getting their takeaway food and stuff like that. So Blackrock really thrived actually, and we were nearly busier in certain days than we ever would have been. Whereas you reverse it in Dundalk. In Dundalk was a town centre location, and that was basically everybody getting their lunch during the week on their breaks, and all the shops are obviously closed as well. So there was no real footfall in the town centre, with everybody working from home. So we went from having maybe 15, 20 staff members in there to 1, and just had a coffee hatch in and just doing takeaway coffee, and it wasn't even worth opening the kitchen. So it was a huge contrast, and there's only 10 kilometers in the difference between the 2 places. So it was definitely a challenging time, but thank God at least one of the cafes and restaurants were able to hold our own and keep the money coming in and keep everybody paid. We kept our whole management team on board from day one, and we kind of covered all aspects of the business from that. It gave me a good time to kind of step away from the day-to-day operations of the business and really kind of put a structure in place in the company. And since then we've really restructured our management team, which has freed me up a little bit more to kind of look at the bigger picture and start planning goals more strategically than I ever would have been. So we've definitely come out a lot stronger. We've refurbished the 2 restaurants. We've put a lot of time and effort and training into our teams, and it's been a great success. And if anything, it's probably been a blessing in disguise for us as a business. Of course, there's been a lot of hard times through it and a lot of uncertainty and things like that, but we actually achieved a lot over the last year and a half. Maybe not all in sales, but in other areas we've grown, you know.
And how is your Dundalk location doing now?
It's actually going great. It's overtaken Blackrock again, which is brilliant. Thank God.
Yeah.
And we got a new parklet feature outside there. It's a lovely pedestrian street where it is on Earl Street. It used to be the old newspaper printing press, going back a couple of 100 years, but it's a lovely restaurant in the heart of Dundalk there. And we've opened it back up, and it's been absolutely amazing now. It's been great to just see people back in and enjoying what it was. We'd only just taken over. It was an old restaurant, and we took over in the February, and we just rebranded and just about got it open. I think we were 2 weeks open into our second venture, and we had to close, you know. So we gutted the whole place. We refurbished it. We put a new coffee dock in. We put a coffee hatch in that kind of kept us going a little bit, and then we opened up the kitchen and everything. So we've made a really nice business there, you know. Great.
No, that's wonderful. Máirtín, I think we'll be very interested in the next business that we're going to talk to here, Damian Hall. We're interested in all businesses, by the way, but Damian, your business resonates a lot with the type of theme, I suppose, of these podcasts in a way. So complete transformation retreats. Tell us about that. Tell us about yourself as well and your journey over the last year and a half.
Yeah, sure. So thanks for having me on, first and foremost. It's a pleasure, and it's great to hear all the stories about all you guys and the businesses, and thankfully thriving throughout a tough time for everybody. I guess my journey in the last year and a half has been similar to Danny there. You know, I'd like to think I've made the most of the last year and a half. We haven't been able to run the retreats, essentially. But my other business, which is personal training, group training, and working with clients and their mindset, we managed to transition online, especially after the first lockdown, which was a bit of a, it's a tough time because immediately you're thrown into the fire where you suddenly have to transition, and it wasn't easy, but I'm glad we did it. And then it just we put everything in place for then the next 2 lockdowns after that. So it was a very easy transition to go back there. So I'd like to think that we actually came out of it as a stronger business unit than when we went in, because we were forced to put things in place that was able to move into different directions in terms of the the business. So essentially what we do with our complete transformation retreats is we run mind and body retreats for Lanzarote. So they're luxury retreats. We take people away, give them that bird's eye view that Máirtín was talking about, where you can take people out of their current environment. Because it's very hard when people are just in that bubble that they're in to make changes, because you can't really see what needs to be changed until you step out and have a look in from that bird's eye view. So what we do on the retreats is we take people away into a lovely luxury villa in the sun, which obviously helps people relax and just feel nice and feel that bit of luxury always helps. We take people away out for excursions every day. Like we charter luxury boats, go on volcano treks, kayaking, snorkeling to lovely beaches. We work out every day. We do yoga first thing in the morning. We teach our clients about nutrition. We teach them how to cook properly, to be healthy, because it's a skill that a lot of people have sort of left behind over the years. And essentially, it's helping people lose weight. We've had clients who've lost up to a stone in a week just through reducing the inflammation, water retention, all that sort of stuff, and giving people that part of the jigsaw that they've been missing in terms of that balance, because that's missing so much, and it's so upside down in terms of people's priorities these days, because it's all about just work and progression with work, as opposed to the 4 pillars that we put in place in terms of health is one big thing, family is the second, self-development, and then work is in there as well. But it can't be so upside down that you're suffering in every other department, because if you're the healthiest version of yourself, your family is healthy, and you're developing yourself, work is going to flourish and thrive way more so. So it's really important to put the fundamentals in place in terms of your health, and then everybody and everything around you is going to progress and flourish and work better as a result of that. So we remove the roadblocks. We give them those goals and a clear path to how to move forward after the week in terms of where they want to go in their professional life, their private life, their family life, their self-development, and give them all the tools to do that then.
Brilliant, Damian. That really resonates with a lot of what myself and Máirtín have been chatting about on this particular podcast. Just a question before Máirtín comes in on that. A lot of the work in terms of the podcast area is focused on business owners, really, because business owners have a huge amount to deal with in terms of ensuring their business is running well and all of that. Your clientele or your customers on the complete transformation retreats, did you see many business owners actually identifying themselves, I need this kind of a retreat, or is it a different type of clientele you might get?
No, it's actually business owners is as you'd expect, entrepreneurs who don't really look after themselves as well as they should, because they're busy creating and making things and doing things and all that sort of stuff. So essentially our clientele would be business owners, people who might be on their own. They mightn't have a partner to share a holiday with. They don't want to go and sit in the beach bed. They want to just go and be active, but also be around people, people who are at a roadblock in their lives in terms of their career. What do I do next? I hate my job. I want to change. I'm stressed. I don't know how to eat properly. I don't know how to lose weight. I don't have to look after myself. So it's quite a broad range. But if you're to ask me, if there was one typical sort of clientele that would come on our retreat, it would be probably business owners. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Brilliant. Okay. Well, Máirtín, I'd love to get your observations at this stage before we go round again and pick some of the thread.
It's very interesting, actually, and that's one thing with all of these podcasts. Like, no 2 stories are the same. It's quite riveting, actually. I find everybody's story very interesting. But like JP there, having started and bought the business, about 2 years ago, and went straight into the global pandemic, and it's very interesting that they've improved so much, and the turnover has gone up so much, and like that he has identified, you know, I suppose from our perspective at MindOverMountains, to hear JP saying that, you know, they've identified for himself and his partner John that they will actually have to put some such systems in place to allow them not have to work as much and spend so many hours behind the wheel, and that they're thinking in that regard. Deirdre, then of course, their business, like as you said, a totally different direction, but it's been so successful. And to hear her saying that 6 or 7 of the top performing countries are out of 67 or 65 countries, it's unbelievable, actually, yeah. And then Daniel, like, it's amazing, like the enthusiasm I heard on him, like when they had to close down because of the pandemic, but he was in some way looking forward to the challenge, which is very interesting, you know. And that, like, I heard him saying that, you know, he identified it as a time where they restructured at management level, and it allowed him then to focus on his goals, which is very interesting. And then Damian, of course, like, is probably like another arm of what I'm doing myself, and it's interesting, like, the type of clients that he's bringing away and what he finds with them, and no different to what I'm doing. I get people to go outdoors, and that's why I call the company MindOverMountains. You know, I encourage people to get out for a walk, to get out in the fresh air, and I find as well, like, that if I can get people to do that, clients that I'm dealing with on an ongoing basis, I find that they can relax a lot more. They begin to enjoy it, and it takes them away from that business mentality that they're kind of stuck in all the time. Yeah, so it's very interesting. 4 very interesting stories there.
Yeah, for sure. Let me go back to JP for a second. What do you feel looking at your own life now, and if you look at the wheel of life as we've spoken about, what would your challenge be for the next year or so?
Yeah, well, I suppose my own background outside of business, you know, I would have had a strong sporting pedigree, to be honest, from a young age. You know, I played soccer at a high level, and then I was road racing, cycling for a number of years. So personally speaking, I put a lot of value and onus on being fit. Personally speaking, I perform better in the business when I'm fitter, when I'm, you know, out and about more. So I do try and get out cycling at least once or twice a week still. Not enough though. But look, from a business perspective, it's quite difficult at the moment to get that sort of work-life balance, and for obvious reasons. We're trying to grow the business, and we're trying to get a succession plan behind us. We are trying to get the team, for example, back to the office sooner rather than later. Everyone's been working from home. We have tried to get a team event set up for September, trying to get the staff to buy into it. But I suppose the staff are probably no different to ourselves. They're equally busy, and they're under pressure to perform and work. But, you know, we do have a challenge as a company ahead of us to try and get some level of work-life balance back into the business. Yeah. It's difficult, it's challenging, it is possible, but we are a small company of 10 to 15 strong. Different people have different agendas. They have kids, they don't have kids. So I suppose what I'm trying to say is we will get a team event in the next couple of months set up, but we've a bit of a road to travel in terms of work-life balance. And
I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying. I'd like to bring Máirtín in on that, JP, because I hear what you're saying. I think it's a very, very common issue, because essentially, Máirtín, what JP is saying there is we're not a huge company. We're about 10 to 12 people or so. And we'd love to have work-life balance looked at correctly. But right now, it's a very busy time, very, very busy time. So it's down the road a small bit that we'll look at it. I think there's a lot of companies in the very same boat. What do you advise there? Because it basically, can you have a positive effect on work-life balance now, or do you have to wait?
No, I think once you've started to put the plans in place, like there's a particular course there that we use with some companies called Navigating Your Pathway, where we get people actually, you know, to look exactly at where they're spending all the time, how they might be able to cut back slightly and just improve their balance a little bit. And it's amazing actually for companies that have done it. There's an immediate effect, because the fact that a company are proactive and want to help their employees with this, and it is interesting to hear JP saying that, and to acknowledge that all their 10 or 15 employees have their own difficulties with children and that. But that's what this course does. It helps people to look at all that balance. But the feel-good factor that comes from a company who are behind and structured this for their employees, there's a lot of gains to be done out of that as well.
Okay, so that's interesting. So essentially what you're saying is by helping the employees with their own balance, the company can become more productive anyway, because they would free up time maybe in other areas of their lives. Am I reading that correct?
Yeah, that'd be 100%, yeah.
Okay, all right, okay. It's the only time I ever got 100% there now, so thank you very much. Deirdre, I was going to come back to yourself. What about your challenges? Because again, no more than JP, it's been a successful period business-wise for yourselves, and a lot of new stuff coming on. So what has suffered in Deirdre's personal or Deirdre's wheel of life that you want to look at?
So I have a hospitality background, probably very much similar to Daniel there, but I worked with the charity alone prior to coming to McGreal's, because I had to take a step back from day-to-day business and actually look after people. So yeah, I picked a pandemic to do that pretty much, to be fundraising manager for an older person's charity. So I'll be honest with you, I worked for myself for 15 to 20 years and thought you could never work as hard, and then pandemic hit and I was working for alone. So I'm actually glad to be back in business. It was a fantastic experience, but we were flat out obviously during the pandemic because people were so alone and needed help, and we were trying to mobilize people nationwide to support older people. And then I moved to the McGreal's group, and it's a pharmacy group predominantly, with opticians and audiologists as well. We're trying to create essentially a one-stop shop, or integrated healthcare at a community level. And I know from a McGreal's perspective, they did an awful lot to support community. And they set up kind of emergency response unit straight away, and they got a lot of the businesses to buy into that. Our head office supports 10 or 11 businesses as well as Novaerus now, and it's very much hands-on, and they're very much retail businesses, and they were very busy throughout the last number of 18 months. So it's only now I think people are taking the opportunity. I have 2 weeks holidays coming up, which I'm really looking forward to, and I can't remember the last time I had 2 weeks holidays, so I'll be looking forward to that. But yeah, I mean, in working for yourself, you're used to early mornings, you're used to late nights, you're used to just putting in the time. I definitely, I need to get healthier, I need to get fitter, I need to give my 7-year-old more time for sure. But at the same time, and probably a little bit like JP there, what has to be done has to be done. If you're front facing, if you're supporting retail, if you're supporting businesses that are open, there are challenges around staff, staff becoming ill with COVID, not being able to get staff, growing, as a rapid growth business now, trying to recruit a sales team, which is predominantly being just myself and maybe one other until now. So that doesn't stop. But I think certainly the benefit of 2 weeks holidays and getting out of the work bubble will help, and hopefully come back refreshed in September and raring to go.
Yeah, you cannot beat. Well, listen, I can tell you from experience of just having, you just can't beat that break. It's great. It's great. And Daniel, the same question for you in terms of what would you? I see you as the challenger mentality, where when this pandemic struck, you saw it as a challenge and you really went for it, and it was tough on your industry. There's no question. I think we can all agree in a way that your industry especially was hit, in a very tough way on this. But you approached it with a challenge. You saw it as a new challenge. So looking at your life from the helicopter view, what other areas would you like to take a challenge on over the next year or so?
Yeah, like I suppose the common trend is kind of like getting that work-life balance. What I've tried to do kind of from the off, like in this industry, it's very, very hard to get a good work-life balance. I've got 2 young kids at home, and 2 boys, 4 and 2. So it's just as manic at home as it is in work at the moment, but it's great. Like what I've tried to do is nearly marry work and work-life balance in a way. So what we've done, basically, I'd be a keen runner, and RockSalt is all about, I suppose, community lifestyle and looking after each other and eating well, and I suppose not being super healthy, but having that balance between good healthy food, but also you can have a cheat meal every now and then and things like that. So I was like JP, I was always into sports, and that was always my background, bringing up in team sports and stuff like that. So we kind of brought that into the ethos of RockSalt. So I'd be a keen runner. So every Sunday morning we do a community run now, led by myself and the team here. So Sunday morning at 8 o'clock, we all meet. Anybody's welcome to join. We do a 5K or a 10K, depending on levels of fitness around the village. And anybody who comes down, we give out pots of porridge and coffees on the house from us. And it's a lovely social aspect. Everybody's sitting out on the Sunday morning out in the beach wall there and enjoying a coffee and a run, or coffee and a porridge after doing a run and getting up, and they're all feeling great about themselves, you know. And that's really enjoyable for me, you know. It's 2 hours where, okay, technically I'm working, but I'm not really working, you know. That's one element of the business. We've also done that in Dundalk now as well, which has been great. Yeah. We started off with 5 or 6 people running with us, and you know, during the height of the pandemic, when we were able to run in groups, we had 30-40 people turning up on a Sunday morning, like, because all the pubs were closed on a Saturday night, I suppose. Yeah. But it was a great community aspect. In terms of looking after our team as well, we try to practice what we preach, in terms of being a healthy lifestyle brand, and you know, we try to encourage that through our team members as well. We've got about 45 people employed now at the moment, which is great, but it's my responsibility now to try and do my best to look after them and help them out as well. So we've also just teamed up with a new personal trainer here in RockSalt. So we do 3 classes every week, and it's open up to anybody from the team to join in. And it's brilliant. We do it at 6 o'clock in the morning, Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, and anybody can just put their name down. We go do up to 6 people per session, and it's great team building, but it's also gets everybody feeling good and fresh and healthy about themselves. And anybody can come and go and join. And we use a guy called Fred here in Dundalk, and he's fantastic. He matches all different abilities, and it's great. So for me, that kind of marries work-life balance as well, and I think it does with the rest of the team as well, and it coincides with our brand and what we're trying to do and the ethos behind RockSalt, you know.
Yeah, definitely, all brilliant, And Damian, just to go back to yourself then, from your perspective, definitely we can see health, fitness. You know that the 4 key areas of you, as you've mentioned it, that you need to look at. Is there any area of those that you want to personally look at for the next year, for yourself now, not talking about your customers or clients or anything like that, but for you?
Yeah, do you know what? That's a very interesting question, because my wife asked me the same question just last night. Because I talk about my work goals, and I talk about you know, what I want to do and what I'm trying to do and all that stuff. And she goes, "No, what about you? What are your personal goals?" And I was like, you know what, I haven't, like, because I generally I would follow what I preach in terms of, like, I do a lot of sort of exercise. I play 5-side, I play tie rugby, I play frisbee, I go to the gym a couple of times a week, I do some boxing and stuff like that. So the nutrition, the training, you know, all that sort of stuff, self-development, I'm always investing in myself in terms of progressing on that front. And, you know, the family time, I'm lucky that I have a really good balance on that side. So my 4 pillars that I preach, I generally have covered quite well. But to answer your question, if I could do something better, it would be probably switch off completely from work. And I'd say everyone else here can probably resonate with that, being business owners. You might not be working, but you're working in your head. So I would say that's probably my biggest thing. That's why I play some team sports still. That would be my background as well, like the guys were saying. But I play it on a social level. So still, for that hour where you're running around competing, you're switching off. And that is so important. That crucial hour 2 or 3 times a week where you just don't have a chance to think of work or anything else other than what you're doing right now. You're so present, you're so in the now, is priceless for me, and I really value that. So I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing, and I'm going to keep thinking about your question and what my wife asked me, and I'll come back to you on the next episode.
Yeah, you see, she called me before the show, Damian, and she said, make sure you ask him this question.
Very good.
That's great. Máirtín, just to wrap up from your own feelings of what we've heard today.
That's very good, yeah, very interesting. But like, just to pick up on what Damian was saying there, I think there's a big learning for us all in this personal development as well. And I think the more of that we do, and we prioritize things slightly differently. I know for myself, like health-wise, and I've been into team sport. I was a county footballer. I cycled across America, and I've been to Everest Base Camp. I do a lot of hiking and all other stuff. But I'd have been hugely active, like even when I was running 2 big businesses. But like I went and got myself tested 2 years ago there, and I ended up getting 4 stints, which came as a huge shock to me, like, because I had no ailments whatsoever. And sometimes it takes that to kick people into gear. I know it's a health scare or something, but I think there seems to be a huge interest now in, like, it was lovely listening to Daniel and like how he's made. He used the word marrying the work-life balance, with his work and what they're doing for their staff and that. And I think there is, like, to hear JP there talking about, that they want to do something going forward, and Deirdre as well saying that she'd like to spend a bit more time with her son and that she wants to get a little bit fitter. I think there is a hunger there for everyone to try and improve that balance and come up with a system that suits their businesses. So it's very interesting, very good information coming from everybody there. I really enjoyed it.
Well, listen, I want to thank everybody for a really, really interesting podcast, and for sharing your time and sharing those insights and the vulnerability sometimes that comes with saying, I'd love to work a little bit better on this or that. So JP Hilliard, who's the director of WKN Real Estate Advisors, Damian Hall, the creator of the 90-Day Body and Mindset Matrix and owner of Complete Transformation Retreats, Deirdre Devitt from Novaerus, distributed by McGrail's Group, and Daniel McLoughlin, owner of RockSalt cafes and restaurants in Blackrock and in Dundalk in County Louth. And of course, Máirtín, to you, the sage, as always, thank you very much. And we'll talk to you again, and hopefully we'll meet all of you in some walk of life again. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Cheers, Jen. Thanks.